Welcome everyone to another Mind Body Conversations series. My name, if you are watching this for the first time, is Benny Fergusson, and I'm here today with the mighty man Tom Mountjoy. And if this is the first Mind Body Conversation series that you've watched, basically it's my intent to capture conversations with people that I really expect and value in the area of health and movement and fitness, if you choose to use those terms. And Tom is a very good example of that. And all we're basically doing is unifying on a very singular concept, singular intent or word, and then we're just having a conversation around it. And the intent is that some valuable stuff for you and your physical practice come out. So if you're into all that, enjoy and keep watching. Today's intent that Tom has so wonderfully set is release. So we'll be talking about all sorts of wonderful things, releasing things from your body, and what that means to Tom and me, and we'll have a good chat around it. So maybe I'll just pass over to Tom, and for those of you who haven't met this handsome gentleman, I'll let him introduce himself.
Thanks Benny. Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure talking to you again, and I look forward to having our chat. Just very briefly, I'm from New Zealand originally, and grew up there, and had a pretty active life, and typical for young New Zealanders, participating in sports. Pretty much every day as a child, and then eventually leaving New Zealand and traveling quite a lot throughout the world, and then ending up where I am currently in Norway. Where I've been for quite some time now. So this is where I am, and my practice is quite diverse. It sort of draws upon a lot of my background in strength sport and cycling as well, competitive cycling. And in more recent years, it's really developed more, I would say, towards the sort of internal side of movement practice, and more of the sort of the hidden levels, if you like, of the idea of strength, and how that can be sort of a lot more diverse than we sort of acknowledge on face value from the traditional strength and conditioning background. So in recent years, due to a number of different circumstances, I think that we could maybe talk about, my practice has more sort of become focused on the idea of stillness and slowness, and really reflective contemplation about our internal workings, and how that relates to our overall movement practice. So that's kind of the stage where I'm at now. Excellent.
And I really love, I've been reading some of your Instagram posts, and they're very insightful. It's the internal experience can be quite difficult to capture because it's so subjective and difficult to interpret, but you do quite a good job of interpreting some of those subtle experiences that can happen during physical training. So right. I'll link to your Instagram page so people can check it out as well, and afterwards. So along the lines of release, so you've been practicing in the tension release technique for some time, and that's obviously all about release, and probably similar to me, a background in strength sports and performance and all of that sort of thing. So maybe what's been the shift for you between, because you're a fit, able guy, you can lift heavy weights, you can do, you're kind of at the top of what a lot of people perceive as the top of the mountain as far as fitness goes, your whole good body composition, all of that sort of stuff. So why change?
Yeah. I mean, that's a good question, and it's the sort of a question that I'm asked on a regular basis, and it's a question that I'm actually always reflecting upon myself. And I think it has a lot to do with this traditional idea that we were raised with as young athletes and as young coaches, the way we sort of have to have this foundation of strength and condition first and foremost, and then everything is sort of built upon that. And really the sort of side effects of that are really sort of lacking a lot of focus when it comes to our practice and our recovery. And I've kind of inverted this traditional pyramid, if you like, over the years, trying to focus a lot more on this residual tension that was always sort of apparent after my trainings and after my long periods of participation in certain sports. I was kind of curious as to why, even though on the surface I was strong and I was fit and I was competing at a decent level in different sports, why I kind of had this slight disconnect with what was going on internally within my body. And I kind of thought about this a lot and delved in a little bit here and there, but not fully. I didn't really want to get away from this idea that I was actually quite good at something, and this was based around strength and capacity and the willingness to work really hard and train hard, and more sort of a performance-based, quantitative way of looking about my training. So I sort of took the leap of faith, if you like, to sort of delve more into the internal dynamics and see where this tension was really being stored, and how I could take practical steps to sort of try and release a lot of this tension and allow my body to become more fluid and become maybe more in touch with my body, especially post training.
Yes. And so for you, maybe if you'd like to share a little bit about tension and all of that sort of stuff, because some people, I think probably most people that I've ever worked with are experiencing varying degrees of tension being stored in their body. Often people just see the obvious things. They experience like muscle tightness or joint pain and all of that sort of thing. What sort of things have you noticed with regards to tension and the process of release, just through your journey so far?
Yeah, it's been an interesting ongoing journey, really, and I find that I'm discovering new things about my body and about the idea of tension being stored and tension being released every day, and it's a fascinating journey, to be honest. And I think a lot of it comes down to this idea that in order to release tension or to become more in tune with where the tension is being stored, we need to create this space and actually have an awareness of this space within our bodies. And before, I think I was certainly not aware of the need to create that space. I was always kind of trying to shut off those signals that my body was giving me. But now I need a break, or now I need to sort of analyze the way I'm training or the way I'm recovering or the amount of volume that I'm putting into my training, and kind of being a little bit fearful or a little bit insecure about that space. And instead of trying to just allow that process to naturally unfold and unravel, I was kind of trying to immediately jump towards the next block of training or the next block of intensity to try and sort of block out that tension and block out that space, if you like. So for me, it's been more about trying to be a lot more humble, I would say, in my approach to training and also to recovery, and just allow the space to kind of speak for itself, if you like, and then try and sort of adapt my own methods to try and incorporate a little bit more patience, if you like, in being aware of that space firstly, and then secondly trying to find different techniques that I can apply to allowing that release process to sort of become more a part of my daily practice.
There's some really good, I think probably the last two things that you said, there's something that's really noteworthy with that is, throughout this process, we have to release certain forged parts of ourselves that, from all of my studies in NLP over the years and all that sort of thing, identity is the strongest layer of belief. And a lot of the time when we're going into, in that performance paradigm, which I was at too, it's like better, faster, stronger, it's all quantitative, it's measurable, it's analytical, all that sort of thing. But then it takes you down a certain path, which is, it's very yang in nature, so to speak. And I can really relate with what you're saying about releasing fears of, if I stop doing this thing that, it still gives me a good experience, I'm strong, I'm fast, I can perform well and all that, but there's something missing that I don't quite know, and to take that step into the space like you're speaking, where you're not necessarily holding on to that identity of strength, of performance and all that as strongly. It's not necessarily fully letting it go, but yeah, I think releasing the fears, releasing who we believe we are, to then maybe explore and experience a more true version of who we are beneath the intellectual concepts.
Sure.
What's coming up for you as I'm mentioning all of that?
Yeah, I'm just getting that sort of that mind-body sort of dualism and dichotomy that's constantly a part of our everyday lives, that we're constantly having this override of our idea or our concept about what a certain movement is, or what a certain ability as an athlete is, that we're strong in a certain way, or we have certain abilities or certain skills. And we're kind of attached to those concepts more than perhaps we should be, and we're kind of a little bit fearful of that mystery of the actual unfolding movement that we're in during the everyday process. And it really is, for me, movement really is a mystery. It's not something that we can sort of categorize or pin down or conceptualize. It's something that we have to just allow as a process to unfold, and kind of be cool with that, and kind of accept that. And the more we can be patient with that and be comfortable with that, then we tend to find that these ideas that we have about strength and performance and certain goals and ideas that we have, they kind of fall into place, if you like, once we have that sort of calm sense of awareness that the process will take place no matter what we think, no matter how we categorize it, no matter how much emphasis we put upon it, how much stress we put upon it, the process will still unfold. And the more we try and sort of attach our thoughts and our feelings and our mind to that process, then of course the things become a little bit more tricky if things don't go according to plan. So I think it's for me, it's very much sort of a mind-body connection, that I'm trying to sort of integrate everything into the one process of flow, if you like, or of acceptance of the moment, of being in the movement as being the process, rather than the actual idea about a certain goal or achievement that we're looking to work towards, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, really. There's a few things that. So when my teacher a long time ago, she said, there's two things to be aware of, and that's the two A's of attachment and aversion.
Yeah, sure.
And once, for me in particular, of really letting go of even the attachment of getting fitter, of getting stronger, and just simply, and it can go both ways. You can sort of like end up staring at your navel and going nowhere fast with that idea as well. But just particularly the process for me, it just keeps coming up when we're talking about it, is standing practice. And because when you're in a practice like that, there's nowhere to go, really. You're just there, and it shows you, it's a very powerful, reflective movement. It shows you where you're holding tension. It shows you where you're able to let go, where you're not, And
yeah.
For me, at the beginning, I was very attached to the idea of strength and holding myself up. And, within a couple of minutes, I was like, my whole body was shaking, just saying, let go, allow the process to unfold. And so I was really getting that term allowance coming through. What are some of your experiences that you've noticed, being a strong guy? Like what, just to contextualize maybe, you've probably deadlifted some pretty good numbers, I would imagine, in your time, just to give people, not that it's about I've deadlifted this or anything, but...
Yeah, well, actually, I've never really been a lifter or a weightlifter, but but I was more sort of into kettlebell sport and that kind of lifting, and then but yeah, of course, a little bit of deadlifting and a little bit of squatting, but to be honest, I was never really sort of caught up in those the numbers game or the big dudes corner at the gym kind of game, But I think I managed to pull 200 kilos off the floor one time a few years ago, and I kind of stopped there, and I was reasonably pleased with that. as
Yeah.
a nice round number. And
Yeah.
2.5 times body weight kind of pull from the floor, and I kind of left it at that. And
Yeah.
to be honest, I haven't done a deadlift or a squat for a couple of years now, loaded. So
Yes.
I don't really know where I'd be at, but but it's nice to know that you can be strong at certain times if you need to be. That's kind of an important thing for me, is sort of developing my idea of strength in many different realms, not purely on the sort of the quantitative idea of how much we can lift or how much we can press or how much we can carry, but actually think about strength as being something that can carry over into many different aspects of our life as well, and broaden our conceptualization, if you like, of strength beyond the simple sort of measures that we see at the gym every day.
Yeah, and I was curious about that, because a lot of people, when we talk about, when obviously the context is release, but releasing the idea of, what we limit strength as, like depending on the circles, like in my perception, 200 kilos is a good amount of weight to be able to lift up. It's a very practical amount, and some people might be going, oh, but I'm a power lifter and 300 kilos, that sort of stuff. But to contextualize that, so you look at 200 kilos, some people it's a lot, some people it's not a lot. And either way, it's 200 kilos. You holding it in your hands. So then we take away the weight, and you're just standing. So let's say 10 minutes in, what's that experience like when you first began that practice?
Into the standing meditation practice. Yeah, this is a revelation. I mean, I've been practicing this standing meditation for just a few months, seriously, actually, on a day-to-day practice. And this is a new experience. This certainly wasn't 10 minutes at the start of my practice. This was just a few minutes here, a few minutes there, and really, it was just a key sort of spark in my head about where tension was actually residually lying that I was not previously aware of. My lower back, especially, neck, and and upper back as well, backs of my knees, just these areas that I knew I was actually putting under a lot of pressure for so many years, riding my bike, playing rugby, lifting weights, etc. Just knowing that there was tension housed, especially in my posterior chain, but just not being aware of how, on a simple standing practice, that could actually resonate and become so apparent after such a short period of time. So it's certainly humbling, and it's definitely a long process I can see ahead. It's just becoming aware of my basic posture again through standing. Yes,
yeah, and I'm always interested in that, just to contextualize, to really help, because I think a lot of the time the mind can really limit us in terms of subtle internal based practices like this, because we discount it. We look at, well, I can stand, why do I need to get better at it? And and I often ask the question, well, can you really? And what is the purpose, of lifting, such large amounts of weight, if we can't just do this simple practice of standing without tension building up in the body? And so tell me, what are some of the things that you've noticed with your feet during this process of release?
With my feet, I think the feet are incredibly sensitive parts of the body in terms of balance and our sort of sense of alignment as far as our posture is concerned. And one thing that I really noticed was just how unstable I was. I think me thinking I was so stable and I had such good balance and I had such a good resting squat, and I was really able to spend a lot of time in meditative positions and really just zoning out in stillness, and realizing how much movement there actually occurs during those still times. So I think for me, standing and through my feet especially, I've really noticed just how much micro adjustments are taking place constantly throughout our practice, even when we have this idea that we're still. So I can only imagine how these kind of imbalances and these kind of alignment deficiencies occur when we're actually loading with weight, or when we're actually involved in physical activity, strenuous activity. So just stripping it all the way back to its basic standing meditation or standing posture. My feet have really been a great sort of signal to me that my balance really needs a lot more sort of full body and full mind integration to actually become more stable than I thought I was. So it's quite a sort of again another humble revelation that the standing practice has given me.
Yeah, I really like the way I see all of this is, because standing it's just a very simple symbol of the way the human body starts moving when it's on its feet. Every other movement is simply a magnification of this position, whether it be as simple as walking, or going to the gym and lifting weights, or doing body weight training, or anything like that. It's all just a magnification of that position. It might be the smallest little thing that's going on in the feet. And what we're really kind of noticing, once we release all the ideals of, I'm strong, I am this, I'm that, we then start to notice more clearly what's actually happening in the body. Yeah. So it's so the question that kind of comes up for me is, because a lot of the time the mind can be busy. There's a lot of chatter going on. I should be doing this. If I don't do this, then I'll lose this, and blah, 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 blah. What have you noticed in terms of the mind and release and, that mental sort of chatter? A lot of people talk about it. Your perspective on it.
I mean, it's a huge topic. The whole idea of mental chatter and how to sort of tame that. For me, it's an ongoing process of just trying to sort of be so aware of my moment of standing, or my moment of squatting, or lying, or however my practice shapes up that certain moment, and just trying to sort of release, as you say, any of these ideas that my body is tense today, or my body feels calm today, or my body kind of have these attachments or these ideas that what my body is going through that day, before actually my body is giving me those signals, or rather than listening to my body first and then kind of just thinking maybe afterwards, or after my practice, what my mind was telling me, because the mind is constantly bombarding you with these ideas about where you're at that particular day, and comparing, contrasting to previous days. And so there's different techniques, obviously, as you know, to use, and there's different techniques that I use during meditative practice. But for me, just simply using the mind and trying to calm the mind is a lot more challenging than it is actually going into the body and trying to use the body as more of a sort of a tool for finding this stillness and finding this space of release. So I'm a big proponent of using kind of standing meditation practice, body scan meditation, whether it's lying or whether it's in the squat position that I like to use, and actually just using the body for these small micro adjustments, and really zoning in on the awareness to different parts of the body, to try and calm and cut out the mind, if you like, from these processes. So for me, this is a big part of the tension release practice that's really resonated with my own practice and my own teaching, as well as actually getting people to use their bodies during these meditative practices as well, rather than simply saying to people, sit down, sit still, and just focus out the mind, because that, of course, is a huge challenge, and it's something that we'll be doing all our lives, I think, trying to override what's going on up here.
Yeah, and you can get caught in I've been in a lot of meditation, meditative circles, in teaching yoga teachers, and working with meditation practitioners and monks and the likes of all that sort of thing. And I think a lot of the time with meditation, and I would never profess to be an expert, maybe only on my last breath that I could say I learned a little bit about. I think a lot of the time, and for me included, when I first started, I was really trying to quiet my mind down. Like I was putting so much effort into it, and it just got worse. It's over and over this loop of thoughts. And but I really, I'm a big proponent, and I really like what you said about just simply learning to listen to the body. Learning to feel your body. Getting in touch with it, scanning your body, understanding it. Then the mind doesn't. It's not as busy. Because it's occupied with all of this.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on. The star of the show.
Oh, what a beauty.
So she'll take a sec. So in terms of, so there's varying layers of becoming aware of the body. Maybe, and what I've noticed, as you release certain layers of tension, then you start to experience, almost like peeling an onion, another layer beneath of awareness, and another layer, and it can go on for a long time, almost infinitely. But
Sure.
what are some of your experiences that could be useful for people that you've gone through in terms of the layers of release?
Yeah. It's interesting you use that analogy, and I know it's been used before with the artichoke as well. So maybe it's the onion and the artichoke. There's a few different teachers that use different analogies of peeling away the layers to get to something. All right, we don't have to know what it is, but we're actually just trying to, instead of add the layers, we're trying to peel away the layers. And I think this is a simple concept, but something that is often overlooked by people. They're obviously trying to constantly add to their game, add to their practice, add to their movement set, to their skill set, or to their levels of strength, or add to their numbers, or create, right? Rather than actually stripping away and then seeing what's left. Because that's, again, just that we spoke about before, it's that fear factor, that sort of insecurity in the unknown. What happens if I strip away these layers? Then I don't know what's going to be down there, that can be quite scary, So, and I think as far as tension goes, and as far as release goes, you really just have to get to a point where you think, I can't be continuing to try to add anything more to what is already pretty perfect, right? So we have this idea of we're the perfect sentient being. We're not looking externally to try and add all these different abilities and skills and glamour to our already perfect body, right? And it's quite a kind of a weird thing to think about, but if you sort of strip it back and you bring in a bit of Taoism and a bit of sort of Zen Buddhism to it, then you can kind of get this idea that what we have is already within us. It's just these blockages and these distractions that are kind of blurring our picture, if you like, of what's deep down. So in saying that, for me, it's about first developing a practice, or developing a number of practices that can really calm you down and drop that ego mind that's constantly nagging at you. Don't give up the lifting, or don't give up these number of hours per week practicing this or that, because then something bad is going to happen to the body, right? It's about just sort of being more humble and going all the way back to the basics, standing, squatting, some basic crawling movements, just some hanging, or very, very basic movements. And then just seeing what happens when you just focus on those very simple, basic, fundamental human movements, seeing what happens to the body, just bringing awareness to different parts of the body and trying to use your breath, become a little bit more aware of your breath, your posture, your alignment, and focus on one small step at a time. And then you'll suddenly see that a lot of these layers, this baggage that you've been carrying around, thinking that you need, or thinking that there's a really important part of your practice, suddenly become a little bit less relevant, if you like, and a little bit less useful when you're stripping your sort of your daily practice all the way back. And then after a while, it takes time, and as you know, it's a lifelong practice. This is not something you can achieve in 3 months, or cure your tension in 3 months. It's a lifelong practice. But I find that idea of stripping away, if you make that as part of your habitual sort of daily practice, alongside strong intentionality and a strong work ethic, then you'll find that these layers slowly sort of fall away, and you're left with the fundamental sort of aspect of your movement, your individual movement as a unique human, right? And that might be different to your friends or different to people that you look up to or aspire to, and then you kind of find a calm in that, because it's you, right? It's not anyone else that you're trying to sort of compare it with.
Yes, beautiful, so
Yeah,
powerful, so powerful. And really, that was, I've gone through very similar experiences, and
right.
a big thing of just really realizing that, at one point or another, we were brought into this earth, we took our first breath, and we had everything that we needed for, the lessons or whatever. Who knows what life's about? But we're all given certain gifts. We've all got this thing in us that you see it when people tap into it. There's a spark in their eyes, when they're just being themselves. It's not, there's no rhyme or reason about it. It's just, this is who I am. And I think that's a very big question that people are asking these days, who am I? And a lot of the time, we can grab at ideas that we sought from the external environment. We see it on YouTube, we see it in our friends and family, all of that sort of stuff, and then that impacts the way we move our bodies.
Sure.
And it might not necessarily be that truth to us, and who knows what that is. No one can tell you who you are.
No, for sure.
But I really love the way you've worded that. This journey is more about unlearning than learning. It's more about peeling away all of the things that are formed over our ego and our psychology and our body, and all of the things, the preconceived ideas that were placed upon us, maybe from childhood in the formative years. And we're starting to clear away all of that and go, well, who am I really when I'm moving my body? So then every step that I take is from a space of truth. And
Sure.
and it can be a difficult topic to talk about, because there's so many variables and there's no one answer. It's quite slippery to the mind. And so there was a question.
Just made me think. Sorry, interrupt. Just made me think. I don't know if there's sort of a typical student of yours who approaches you, but I'm getting a number of students, sort of a commonality in the theme of people that are approaching me for some help and guidance. It's this realm of maybe people similar age to us who have experienced quite a high level of in their sporting career, and they've retired, or they've become injured or disillusioned, and they're kind of looking for something else. The search, if you like, for who am I and what is my body, because they've been defined for so long throughout their careers as a certain athlete, a strength athlete, or a speed athlete, or a power athlete. And this has kind of defined the way that they've used their bodies, the way that they've thought about their bodies, the way that their bodies have resonated with people close to them or other people. And then suddenly they're left with, at the end of their careers, they're left with this idea that, well, is that definition really me? Or is the way I was defined as an athlete during my career, is that really me?
And you and I, having walked that path, and you see it all the time, of just really just going down, achieving that sort of mindset, and then just wondering, who am I outside of this? And just slowly opening the blinkers and exploring that maybe I'm not this. I could be that. And just really, I think, giving ourselves a bit of a break. Sometimes we can be hard on ourselves to prove who we are and all of that sort of thing. And just looking at the idea of having a movement practice that helps you through that journey, that intersects with all of these questions, that is almost your own guide through life.
I really hear what you're saying, that people are starting to ask these questions now about how movement, or a movement practice, if you like, can really help kind of this search of awareness for who we really are within our bodies. As I think it's an extremely powerful tool, movement in itself, but it's as you say, it's a very slippery one as well, because what is movement, right? You can't really define what movement is. It's just it's certainly not a set of skills or an ability to stand on your hands for a certain amount of time or do something on a ring or something. It's certainly not that, right? But it's certainly a field that I think more people are becoming aware of as perhaps something that they can use to actually develop a lot more of these internal awareness elements of themselves.
And and as a natural byproduct, so fitness, strength, all of these things that are innate, that I believe in the human body, naturally result.
Sure. Oh, sure. Yeah.
Which is great. And some people enter this earth with less fortunate circumstances. Their bodies are not able to move as well. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're put out of the mix of, I can be a good movement person or anything like that.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. I think there's some really powerful concepts that for people to feast upon that we've spoken about. So maybe just in parting, are there any kind of things, maybe just 3 big things, concepts to summarize for you in terms of the idea of release and the body and the mind that you could capture that would help people on their journey?
I think the first and foremost is just developing a practice, no matter what the practice is. It can be as simple or as complex as you like, but just developing a concept that you can actually experience the awareness and the process of being in your movement on a day-to-day practice, at day-to-day level. It could be anything. It could be standing, it could be squatting, it could be climbing a tree outside in your garden, or it could be a light jog or biking to work, or maybe just a breath awareness practice as well, a standing practice. But just, I think, develop something that can really connect you through movement to your sort of inner workings on a day-to-day basis. I think that will be probably my first sort of tip, if you like, and the tip that I give to most people is it doesn't really matter. You don't have to become a high-level gymnast or be throwing weights around, or it's not about that. It's just about developing something that is actually going to help you with your intention to be more in the process on a day-to-day basis. I think that's probably one important thing that comes to mind. And second will probably be this idea that I know that you're working a lot with, is this idea of connecting the spine through the hips or through the quad. The inguinal crease, if you like, the hip fold, is actually just developing a bit more awareness of how those two are intimately linked, all right, and where we can actually use that awareness in our day-to-day, because any movement we do, whether we're sitting or standing or walking, we're using our hips and we're using our spine. So just a little bit more awareness of maybe in time and space where our spine is and where our hips are aligned. I think this is probably something that we can all benefit from, bringing a lot more awareness to the hip and the spine and how they're interrelated. We don't have to get too sort of deep and biomechanically aware here, but just a bit more sensitivity, I think, of our spine during movement. And and I think let me think. The third thing that I can think of is maybe just back to the whole idea, Benny, of intentions. Just have an intention every day that you're just going to be a little bit more in touch with yourself. Don't worry about how you go about doing that, right? You don't have to tell anyone. You don't have to sort of advertise it or blog about it or anything, but just, maybe just a small mantra or a small prayer. I mean, I do that. I don't know about you. You probably do as well, but I have every day. Just little mantras, little prayers, little sayings, just little things that sort of help guide me through through my day. We all need that, I think, and we all can't sort of lose focus and just expect the ebb and the flow to take us there. I think it's having sort of these direct mantras that we can use our brains actually to help us, right? And I think that can really provide sort of a powerful day-to-day small step that can really help us in the long run.
Powerful. Yeah, definitely. I always, I have this idea that we're born and we die each day. And so every day I wake up, no matter what has happened in the past, it's just a practice. And it reminds me when you talk about mantras, and there's certain things, certain commands to really be present in this moment, to, let go of that which has been and that which may be, all of that sort of thing, and come into a clear point where I can start afresh and then observe what is, and then look to improve that a little bit more each day, as if I was just born, even though I'm a grown man. And it's a big practice. Every day, I'm confronted with things that I didn't realize, parts of myself that are not serving me anymore, that I didn't even realize were there in the first place. They get presented, and and I learn, and it's really great to be on the journey with you, where we're looking at that in the context of when we move our bodies, how that intersects with ourselves, and the things that we take into the boardroom, the things that we take into work, the things that we take into conversations with those we love, or maybe those that we are having conflict with, particularly for me, as I learn about my body, then those sorts of situations change for the better.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So
it's a deeply personal journey, if you like, Benny. But on the other side of that, the more that we can sort of develop our own internal practice and our internal sort of loving awareness of who we are, then of course you'll see those spin-off effects to other people around us. So it's not really selfish because it's so internal and it's so sort of subjectively personal. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's not sort of, that it's useless to our loved ones or useless to our students or people that are really looking to us for guidance as well, because it does kind of radiate out as well. Once you have more of that calmness and that sort of fortitude that everything's going to be all right, even though things are changing constantly, because we can't stop that, right? We just have to be more a part of that process and part of that experience.
Yes. Yeah. I really love that you've touched on that point. I'm glad that we didn't overlook that point, because a lot of the time people can look at a practice and go, oh, well, I haven't got time and all of this sort of stuff. But it changes the people around you just by that sense of peace, or that space that, that you create for yourself. Maybe it's a big space, maybe it's a small space, but it does emanate outwards. And if you really look at the big implications, we're changing the world one person at a time. And so sometimes I use that in my practice as well. I'm standing and changing the world, and it can sound very weird to some people, but if that just changes my ability to be aware in the moment of what's going on in my body, and maybe I'm not holding as much tension, and then that tension might have been making me feel angry because I was uncomfortable in my body, and I can be pleasant to that person. I can help my student more clearly because I haven't got this voice going on. I can just really listen with the third ear, so to speak. And so wow, there's some really good concepts that we've covered. Thank you so much for sharing your journey today, Tom. And
you're welcome.
And for those of you who have been watching, if you've made it this far, I hope you've got a lot of value. And the way I sort of see all of these conversations is let them wash over you. You don't need to hold on to this idea of, I have to do what Tom says or Benny says, and that's the way. But more so, it's just, a lot of the things we're talking about are ideas and concepts and our experiences that have helped us along the way, and just take what's important to you. Just let it wash over you. So is there anything you'd like to add before we depart, Tom?
No, and maybe wash over those thoughts with a bucket of cold water as well. I'm very much into the cold water therapy. So yeah, that makes things a lot better, cold water as well. So
maybe in future we'll have a conversation. We'll talk about all the wonderment of immersing in cold, and yeah, I'm a big proponent of it as well. And
yeah,
that'd be awesome. I'd love to.
No, thanks, Benny. It was really nice chatting to you, and yeah, just be happy with this process of releasing, and it's a really cathartic experience just to delve into your sort of inner self and your inner ideas and illusions every day, and just try and find space and find stillness. And if you find stillness, then the stillness will circulate around the space, and then interesting things will happen. Okay? It's all part of the mystery, and yeah, as long as we're active and we're moving our bodies, and we're aware of that, then no matter what we're doing in movement, it's going to be really beneficial, I think, for us. So yeah, I think that's my parting advice. I think is just keep moving and just be more in your movement every day.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for your wise words. Until next time, thanks again. Be well. See you again soon.